I had an embarrassing fight with my girlfriend and stormed off a mystery-solving tribute party for some ancient dude who famously saved the king of his tribe from a bear at lunch but got his neck snapped by the king's guards by dinner. She was very stoked to go there with me. It was roughly 40 minutes away from my house, and she had driven me all the way there just to keep nagging about my blue Air Force Ones. I was pretty bummed. I had to get home. I could walk that far, but she threw vintage ink at my shoes right before I stormed out. So I had to put them in a backpack before giving them to my shoe cleaner as quickly as possible. The nearest bus stop was 20 minutes back the way we came, and I didn't feel like explaining to a stranger why I was storming off in the middle of the night. So hitchhiking it was. I had never done it before, but the road ahead was quiet, dark, and mostly empty. I figured if anyone stopped, I would be polite, get in, and be on my way. I walked a few hundred feet down the road and held out my thumb. My backpack sat still on my shoulder, reminding me just how ridiculous this felt. At first, nothing, just the giant billboard, the setting sun, and the occasional sound of a car zooming past in the other direction. Then, after what felt like forever, headlights appeared in the distance. The car slowed as it approached, an older Saturn dark blue with a slightly cracked side mirror. The driver rolled down the window. He was a man in his middle 40s, no beard, dark-skinned, a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. He asked if I needed a ride, in a voice that was calm, a little too calm, like he had been expecting me. "Yeah, thanks," I said, sliding the door open and tossing my backpack in the back seat. I explained vaguely where I needed to go so I could avoid giving the location of my house. He nodded, started the car, and we merged onto the highway. The conversation started typically. He was making a small talk. Weather, maybe. I kept my replies short. My mind was still spinning from the argument, replying every line my girlfriend had thrown at me. She had called me an arrogant dickhead, and I wasn't in the mood for conversation anyway. After a few minutes, the road narrowed, and the trees pressed in closer. I didn't remember the road being like this, but I told myself I would dozed off the whole way there, so I might have missed it. Still, I got worried when I noticed his eyes weren't always on the road. Instead, he spent plenty of time staring toward the other side of the road, almost as if that was how you were supposed to drive on a highway. There were times he just looked left for several minutes. I kept wondering what he could possibly be looking at when the night was pitch black. I remember him asking something strange at this point. I awkwardly laughed, unsure if he was joking, and pretended to look for something far away in the woods. He asked if I ever felt like the night was watching me. I thought I would be polite with whatever ride I got, but this guy's vibe was outright discomforting. For a while, he just kept driving, occasionally turning his head from the other side of the road to straight ahead. As a matter of fact, he seemed to look away from the road less and less frequently as we went. It gave me some relief. But even with that relief, something about the silence in the car felt heavy, like he was waiting for me to say something. After a minute or two, he spoke. "So tribute party, huh?" he said casually, still looking ahead. I answered that it was some celebration thing, but then he wanted to know that what they were celebrating. It was annoying. I said the story of some guy from way back, local legend stuff. He slowly nodded before asking what the guy did to deserve the whole tribute night. The fight with my girlfriend had really heated up because I had basically lied about reading the whole PDF file about this mystery party thing she sent 3 weeks ago. I answered that it was just something my girlfriend was into. But after a few more seconds, he asked if I liked the party. I had half a mind to jump out of the car by then just to avoid talking any longer, although this was about to become the list of my worries very soon. I didn't realize I had said no to that question while I was talking inside my head. Then he wanted to know why I didn't like the party, and this was when I was about to go off on this nosy old man. I glanced at him, but he was stayed long enough to get into a fight there, he said, turning his head toward me for the very first time, and my heart escaped. No, I didn't. I didn't say I fought at the party. He asked me if I wanted to talk about it. Looking forward again, I felt a pang of unease. It wasn't just that he knew what happened. It was the way he said it. The calmness in his tone made my stomach churn. Hey, I said, trying to keep my voice steady and friendly. I have noticed that you look in that direction a lot. I was really curious. Are you looking for a sign or something? He didn't answer right away. Then, almost whispering to himself, not for now, just a little longer. I tried to focus on something else. Anything. My backpack, my phone. All right. My phone was dead. Charging back at the party. Great. No way to call anyone if things went south. I told myself to breathe, to stay calm. I just needed to get home. 40 minutes isn't that long. I wanted to deny the unease, thinking it could save me from panicking. I stressed a little, casually asking if he picked up hitchhikers regularly. He turned to me again, calm as ever, pointed at my backpack and said it depended on what you have on you. What I have on me. I told my shoes goodbye and mentally congratulated myself on getting mugged entirely on my own free will, although there was some comfort in knowing I didn't have my phone or any important documents with me. Just some cash in my wallet and a few cards I could cancel easily. I gave up and started counting the seconds until he would pull out a weapon. For a moment, we just sat in that awful quiet. I could literally hear my own pulse climbing up my throat. I kept telling myself, he just wants my wallet. He just wants the shoes. Take them. Take everything. Just let me out. But the longer I watched him, the less he felt like a mugger. He wasn't checking mirrors or glancing at my pockets or sizing me up. He wasn't doing anything except staying perfectly calm, too calm, almost pleased. And then he smiled. The first real expression I would see from him, he said. I didn't tell him what I did. I said, huh? My stomach folded in on itself. I wondered if he was someone I had beef with in the past. If so, the beef must have been huge. And this nightmare-infested highway would have been the perfect place to kill someone. I swallowed hard, turned to him and asked where exactly we were heading. He didn't answer. He just titled his head, almost nostalgically, and said in a deep, loud voice, "Back." In a blink, I saw him lit up by bright lights coming from ahead. I looked, and the lights were from the party I had left. In another blink, I was on the ground as if I had fallen from mid-air, except I didn't feel any fall at all. I realized I wasn't barefoot anymore. My blue Air Force Ones were intact, no ink on them. I rushed inside to find my girlfriend. She still doesn't believe my story to this day. She thinks I made it up because I didn't want her thinking I got humbled and came back to her after storming out. And honestly, I had also started to believe maybe it was just a hallucination. Maybe I got drunk somewhere and drank enough to not remember anything that happened to me before I found myself on the ground. I told no one else about the story except my girlfriend. But the part that shut me up forever happened years later when I was planning to propose. That same place, same clearing, same stupid romantic idea. While I was setting things up, I overheard two local talkings. They were whispering about some old Native American hero, the one from that tribute party, and the one who got his neck snapped by the king's guards. They said his ghost still picks people up on the highway. They said his head doesn't face the right direction anymore, so no one ever knows what he's actually looking at. And right there, Everything from that night hit me like a punch. When the driver kept staring out the left window for minutes, if his neck was broken, he wasn't looking left. He was looking straight ahead. And the first time he turned toward me, he wasn't looking at my face at all. He was staring at my backpack in the back seat, at my shoes. He was checking what I had on me. And when he seemed to look ahead normally, gazing out the left window less and less as he went, he was actually staring at me. My heart dropped so hard I still remember the exact sound that leaves made when I fell to my knees, because it wasn't just a creepy ride home or a blurry memory. I hitchhiked the legend himself. This happened about 19 years ago when I was living in Oregon. I don't really tell people about it anymore, mostly because I still don't know how to explain how close I came to something this horrible. I didn't have a car, but most weekends my sister would pick me up and take me to hers, which is roughly 13 good miles. I went to visit my sister who lived about 30 minutes away by highway. Normally, she would pick me up. That particular Saturday, her daughter was in for city basketball, and she told me it was an evening match. I said it was fine, and that I would get there myself. There was a bus that went halfway to our area, but the rest was suburban back roads, and walking it would have been taken too long. I made a stupid decision that I would hitchhike the remaining stretch. I know there's a lot of risk, but I convinced myself it wouldn't be anything too reckless. And as a woman in her early 20s, I'd get pretty stoked whenever I saw an opportunity for adventures. It was early evening. The sun was just starting to go down. I stood near the shoulder with my thumb up while cars passed every few minutes. That part is embarrassing now, but I felt almost confident. I had to get there before it got completely dark. Eventually, a silver Toyota slowed down and pulled over ahead of me. The driver rolled down the passenger window. He was a man in his late 30s or early 40s, short hair, clean-shaven, nothing unusual about him. He asked if I was heading towards Pine Brook. I said yes. He gave a quick nod and unlocked the door. I got it. He told me his name was Chris. I told him mine. He didn't try to shake my hand or make any creepy jokes. Just drop, for a while at least. He asked if I lived around here, if I work in town, simple stuff. I wasn't chatty. I kept looking out the window at houses passing by slower and slower as the neighborhoods got further apart. At some point he asked if I hitchhiked often. I said, no, not really. He just hummed and kept driving. We had been on the road maybe 10 minutes when things started to become strange. It wasn't anything obvious at first. It was the way he kept checking the rear view mirror even when the road was dead empty. The way his hands would go to some part of the dashboard and just stay there. But then, at the point when he didn't merge onto Pine Brook when the turn came up, I got tense. Although I wasn't showing it to not let him know, I was scared. I sat forward a bit and tried casually telling him I think we missed the turn. I briefly glanced at him. You hitchhike often? He asked again. I started. No, as I told you already. At first, I thought it was a rhetorical question to indicate that I didn't know too much about the road, so I shouldn't doubt him, and he knew better. I told myself maybe there was a faster road, but I had been to my sister's place countless times, and I had never heard of one. The main road was the only way unless you cut through the hills, and that only connected miles down. I asked how far this faster way was. He didn't answer. He didn't even pretend he hadn't heard me. He just didn't answer. We passed the last gas station for a long stretch. Then the street lights spaced out more and more until there was nothing but an empty road on one of the darkest nights. That was my trigger to get out of the car. I lied to him that my sister texted and she was on her way to pick me up. So if he could pull over somewhere safe, then I would wait for her. He asked me why. His tone made him sound disappointed. You were fine, he said quietly. Nothing else. I didn't respond. I just slowly moved my hands into my jacket pocket where my phone was actually text my sister so I could inform her where I was in case something happened. It wasn't there. I realized I left it charging on my bed when I rushed out earlier to catch the bus. The moment I realized that, my spine froze. My hands started shaking, not so much, but enough that he couldn't have noticed if he looked, and he did. Before I could think of something to say, he reached over suddenly and pressed the lock button on his door. All four locks clicked down. I didn't scream. I didn't start crying. I didn't even say his name. I just froze. Then he placed his right hand on my knee and he looked at me with a blank expression on his face. I instantly moved my leg away and pushed myself against the door. I told him to stop. My voice was loud, but it wasn't a scream, more like a sharp, shaking command. It didn't stop. He unbuckled to lean over me, and I saw his mechanically moving hands coming to my chest. My body went cold, stringing cold. I felt like I was surrounded by bone-freezing eyes. I shouted, bursting into tears, "Please, don't hurt me!" I started sobbing like someone in the distance would hear it and come save me. He smelled my t-shirt and whispered, "Nobody will know." There was no way I could outdo him in hand-to-hand strength. I had to act fast. My hand somehow hit the glove box, and I saw something that looked like scissors. I instantly grabbed it and shoved it onto his cheek. The blade punctured its way to his mouth. He yelped, high, sharp, furious more than hard, and jerked backwards, the scissors rattling inside his mouth. That half second was all I needed. I threw my body weight into the door as hard as I could. The lock was down, but the inside handle still worked, and the door cracked open with a rush of cold air. I practically tumbled out onto the pavement, scraping my elbow, my arm, my knee. Didn't matter. I got it out. I sprinted. I don't remember making a conscious decision to run. My legs just moved before my brain caught up. The road was pitch black, except for his headlights behind me. My shadow stretched long and broken on the asphalt. I heard the car door slam. Then his voice. "Hey!" Not sounded like a threat, sounded like a command. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I just ran toward the tree line beside the road. If I stayed on the shoulder, he'd be on me in seconds. He was bigger, faster, and slower. I wasn't winning that fight. I dove into the woods. It wasn't a forest, it was a scattered line of pines and scraggly brush. That it was enough to hide me for a moment. Branches snapped under my feet, needles sliced my ankles, and my hands kept grabbing at nothing as I tried to stay upright. Behind me, I heard him wading into the trees, breaking branches, breathing hard, and talking to himself. "No one's out here, and no one's gonna hear you." I clamped a hand over my mouth. My lungs screamed for air, but I let them burn. I ducked behind a fallen tree and pulled myself under it, pressing my body flat to the ground. He got closer. I could see his legs through the brush, slow, searching steps. The hole in his cheek didn't stop him but angered him instead, because he kept almost growling. "You stupid! Stupid girl!" Every word was thick with something worse than rage. He stopped about 10 feet from me and turned in a full, slow circle, scanning. I squeezed my eyes shut so tightly I saw all the colors. All I could think was, if I breathe too loud, I'm done. He stood there for what felt like an entire hour. Then finally I heard him walk back towards the road. I didn't move until I heard his car engine start. Didn't crawl out from under the log until I heard gravel speed beneath his tires. I didn't stand until I saw the fading glow of his taillights disappear completely. Even then, I stayed frozen another full minute just listening. Only when the woods fell silent did I force myself out. My legs were shaking uncontrollably, but I followed the road in the direction we had come from, the direction of the last gas station, the last bit of safety. I walked barefoot for most of it, having lost one shoe in the woods. It took almost 40 minutes. When I finally reached the gas station, I fell inside the door and the attendant immediately called the police. They didn't catch him that night. They never contacted me again about my leads. Eventually, I forced myself to move on, or I thought I had. It wasn't until 15 years later that I heard his name once again. I was living in Montana then, scrolling through a true crime article my co-worker sent me. The headline mentioned a serial killer who had been arrested near Portland after a traffic stop. The moment the mugshot loaded, my stomach dropped. Same eyes, same jawline, same blank expression. His name was listed as Christopher Hale Marin, age 58, Chris. Exactly what he told me. He had killed at least 11 women, possibly more. All of them taken on bank roads, all of them young, and all of them raped. I was 27 when this happened, and at the time I was doing delivery driving for a contracting company. They paid decent, but the routes were long and mostly through back roads and rural stretches where we could drive 20 minutes without seeing a single house. This story happened on a Thursday night in late October. I remember that because my truck heater wasn't working properly and the nights were starting to get cold enough to see or breathe. My last delivery was near a small town about an hour from where I live. By the time I finished the job, it was already close to 11 p.m. I didn't want to stay at a motel, so I started the long drive home. It was one of those nights where the fog hangs low, almost like it's sitting on the road instead of floating above it. Most of the road had no lights on them, so there was no way I could drive through without my brights. And there were multiple stretches of forest every few miles. About 40 minutes into the drive, I passed a stretch of forest with no lighting, just empty road and trees, and that's where I saw him. A figure standing on the shoulder, waving his hand. I slowed down because I genuinely thought I saw something wrong. The guy was hunched over, holding this big duffel bag under his arm, close to his chest. The closer the truck went toward him, the more I could make out his appearance. I could tell he was soaking wet, like he had been out there for hours. At first, I drove past him, but then I slowed down until I came to a stop. Something about leaving someone stranded out there in the cold felt wrong. I reserved a few feet. He didn't move. He just stood there with that bag pressed up to him. I rolled down the window and yelled to him, asking if he needed a ride somewhere. The man nodded really quickly. Not a normal nod though, more like a frantic bobbing of his head. That should have been my first warning. He came to the door. He was maybe in his mid-30s, but he had this messy beard and sunken cheeks like he hadn't eaten in days. I reached over and unlocked the door. The first thing he said was thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, over and over again. His clothes were filthy, especially the sleeves, and his hands were gripping the bag like his life depended on it. I asked where he needed to go. He told me a town that was on my way, about 15 minutes ahead. Very good enough. I started driving. A minute passed, then another. The man didn't say anything else. He just sat there breathing loud, clenching that duffel bag so hard the fabric was stretching under his fingers. My friends never miss a chance to show me as a very nosy person, but the bag looked heavy, like it was filled with metal tools or equipment. The way he held it looked very uncomfortable, but he never loosened up his grip. even a little. I tried to make a small talk. I asked him if he lived around here. He shook his head. Then I asked, "Where are you coming from then?" Silence. He didn't answer. He just stared straight ahead. I still regret to this day not taking it as a sign. We were driving through another long stretch of forest when he suddenly told me to turn the lights off. I didn't hear it the first time and waited for him to say it again. I looked at him, thinking if I would misheard. "The headlights," he added. "Turn them off." I looked at the fog, then at him. I didn't ask why. I just said, "That's the stupidest thing that I have ever heard in my life," and told him that I couldn't do what he asked for. Not in this fog. It would be insanely dangerous. That was the first time he looked directly at me, and his eyes were wide, almost terrified. "They can see the lights," he said. "Who?" I asked. Almost yelled. He hugged the back tighter and told me to just keep driving. At this point, I wasn't terrified, but I was definitely uncomfortable. I figured he was mentally unstable, maybe running from someone, maybe even high. But he didn't smell like drugs. He smelled like damn leaves and dirt. We continued down the road in silence until I noticed a car behind us. Just headlights at first, then slowly getting closer. The hitchhiker noticed too. He described to me in a whispering voice to not stop or talk, just drive. The car behind us wasn't speeding. It wasn't honking or flashing its lights, just following. But the way the hitchhiker reacted, shaking, staring at the mirror, made me nervous. Then the car drifted into the opposite lane slightly, like it was trying to get next to us. The hitchhiker practically slammed his body against my shoulder to block my view of the side mirror. "It's them," he whispered. "Who?" I whispered back. He told me to just keep my eyes forward, and I did. But my heart was pounding. Something felt really wrong. For another minute, the car behind us suddenly slowed down and turned onto a narrow dirt road that led into the woods. The hitchhiker didn't relax. In fact, he started breathing even harder, like the danger wasn't gone. I was trapped. I wanted him out of my truck, but the fear in his voice made me hesitate. I felt trapped in the truck, terribly, terribly trapped. Eventually, we reached the outskirts of the town he mentioned. A few houses here and there, nothing busy. I slowed down and asked him where he wanted me to drop him off. He didn't answer. Instead, he told me to not stop yet. I listened. I drove another minute straight ahead before he suddenly yelled, "Pull over there." I flinched but pulled onto the gravel shoulder. The man didn't get out. He sat there frozen, clutching the bag. I asked in a hurry what was in the bag without thinking. He snapped his head toward me, eyes wide with panic. "You don't ask me that." I put both hands on the wheel and compensated that I was just trying to help. He fumbled with the door but didn't open it. He kept looking out into the darkness like he was expecting something to run out of the woods. Then he turned back to me and said, "You never saw me. You don't know my name, and you don't know what's in this bag." I was about to note when he added something that made my blood run cold. "And if someone knocks on your door asking about me, don't let them inside, no matter what they say. Am I clear?" Before I could react, he flung the door open, jumped out, and ran across the road toward an abandoned-looking barn, still holding the bag, looking like he was trying to shield it from a sniper with his body. I watched him disappear behind the barn. A few seconds later, another set of headlights approached from behind us. I thought maybe it was the same car from earlier, but this one was a police cruiser. The officer pulled up beside my truck and rolled down his window. The policeman asked if I was all right. I said yes. And asked what? He said they were looking for a man who escaped custody tonight. They were running through the forest, according to some reports, might be armed. I felt like I would start sweating like a water fountain if it was a curtain. Before I could even speak, the officer added, "He's carrying a large duffel bag." My voice locked in my throat. The officer asked if I had been sent something, but I didn't know what to say. The hitchhiker's last words to me were echoing in my head. I didn't want to get involved. I didn't want to be followed home by whoever he was running from or whoever he was. So I told the officer that I drove a long way here, but I haven't seen anyone yet. The cop nodded, thanked me, and drove up. I sat there for a minute, staring into the darkness where the man had disappeared. I should have driven away immediately, but curiosity got the better of me. I stepped out of the truck, keeping the door open, and walked a few feet toward the barn. I didn't get close, just enough to see if the man was inside. Don't know what happens to me sometimes, but something about the whole thing felt wrong, really wrong. I got back into the truck and drove home as quickly as possible, checking my mirror every 30 seconds. The next morning, I searched for keywords like escaped detainee and duffel bag in the news portals, hoping to find something from last night. There was a headline about an escaped detainee, no name, no photo, just a warning not to approach him. But there was also a second article which made me sick in the stomach. Abandoned barn south of Railroad searched. Officers found traces of blood in his blood-stained duffel bag. Escaped cannibal convict still at large. I didn't find anything about what was inside the bag, and part of me is glad I'll never know. For the next few weeks, I jumped every time someone knocked on my door. It's been years now. They still never caught him. To this day, I wonder if he ever thinks about coming back for the one witness who knows he was out there that night. I stopped picking up hitchhikers after that. For the rest of my life, I probably will.